I've learned the same thing over and over again, where it's like you forget because you start to feel better,
Right.
and then you don't feel good again, and you're like, oh, that's right. It's been a good reminder to have those conversations with God about, like, he gets it. I'm not talking to somebody that does not understand what suffering is, what that feels like, how hard things are, that he gets it, and that he only wants what is good for me, even when the thing I'm dealing with doesn't feel like it's good for me.
Hey, brother, do you still believe in one another?
Welcome to episode 484 of the Reformed Brotherhood. I'm Jesse,
I'm Jen.
and this is the podcast where two become one. Hey, sister.
Hey, brother. Sweet. Did not like that at all.
Well, listen, before we get into it, and we're going to get into a great conversation on this episode about suffering and steadfastness and encouragement, and we're going to talk about it like you have never heard it talked about on the Reformed Brotherhood podcast before, and that's in part or in whole because we've got a special guest, the most specialist guest, in my view, that we have ever had on this podcast. Why don't you tell us who you are?
I'm Jen, your wife.
Yeah, you are. And we figured it was about time after 10 long years, and it took 484 episodes to get Jen to come onto the podcast. Listen, this is one of the great marriages of all time. That's what people are saying. Not me. Other people are saying that about us.
I don't think so.
And they're absolutely saying it. And it's finally time that we had you on the podcast, and I am super excited. On a scale of like 9 to 10, how excited are you to finally do this?
I'm terrified. I'm so uncomfortable already this week.
This is fantastic. Everybody, we're sitting in now our makeshift kitchen studio, 2 microphones at the kitchen table across from each other, just doing what the Reformed Brotherhood podcast does, talking about God. And that's what we intend to do today. But, of course, before we get to the topic at hand, you know, or actually maybe you don't know, you know a little bit about affirmations and denials, but even before we get there, there's an important thing we got to talk about. And that is, how many podcast episodes of the Reformed Brotherhood would you have said you have listened to?
I'm pretty sure 0. Maybe half of one, because I remember when you and Tony had the idea for the podcast, and I remember you guys starting to record episodes early on, and I feel like I'm certain I tried to listen to it, but very quickly was like, nope, not for me.
Listen, we understand we're not everybody else's jam. So this is why it makes good sense then to start this episode with a quiz about the Reformed Brotherhood for you to answer. So I have 5 questions here for you. And these are all questions about the Reformed Brotherhood, which I think many of these you'll be able to answer just by way of osmosis. All right, are you ready?
Okay.
It's going to be great. Get excited. Question 1. How did the Reformed Brotherhood podcast officially begin? Was it A,
Oh, that's multiple choice. Okay.
Tony accidentally purchased 2 microphones instead of 1 and wanted somebody to talk to?
Nope.
Was it B, I didn't think there were enough Reformed theological podcasts in the world?
No.
Was it C, you and my sister went shopping and left Tony and I at a brewery? Or was it D, Tony found someone who was wrong on the internet?
Well, I mean, it could be D as well. But it was C because we were at Trogues Brewery when Ashley and Tony were visiting us here. And I don't know how it came up, but you and Tony, well, maybe it came up while Ashley and I were shopping.
Yes.
I couldn't remember if you guys talked about it and then we were like, we're out of here, or if we had already left. And then when we came back, you guys were like, guess what? We're going to start a podcast.
We need a sound effect. You absolutely got that correct.
Okay.
And I think it officially began once you left us. This is what happens
I'm sure.
when
Okay.
you leave us alone.
Well noted.
We started a podcast, and
At
then
a brewery.
10 years later, here we are, sitting across the table from each other, recording an episode. All right, question 2.
Okay.
It's a little bit more difficult,
Oh, no.
but I'm confident in you. Which of the following is not a catchphrase of the Reformed Brotherhood podcast? Is it A, that makes me want to run through a wall? B, Calvinism has the Riz? C, God does all the verbs? Or D, salvation is like a cake? Now remember, you're looking for the one that is not.
First of all, the fact that you're telling me that you guys say multiples, like there's more than one. There's the one that you
It's a lot
don't
of
say.
episodes.
That's concerning to me. I'm hoping it's the one where you said Riz, because you and Tony shouldn't be saying Riz.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
B, Calvinism has. You are correct.
Okay, yeah, good.
I have
you guys
never
can't
said
be
that
saying
in my life.
You can't be saying
Yeah,
that.
you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Thanks. Thanks for calling us out in this hypothetical world that I've created. All right, question 3. This is more difficult still. R. Scott Clark is a Reformed theologian, pastor, professor, and writer who is often mentioned on the podcast. What does the R in his name stand for? Is it A, Randy, B, Rufus, C, Reginald, D, nobody knows? What does the R in R. Scott Clark stand for?
I've never heard of that person.
If you had to guess, Randy, Rufus, Reginald, or nobody knows?
Reginald, but I'm going to go with nobody knows because I don't know.
You are right on both accounts.
Okay.
I would have taken both. So the great joke we have is we call him Reginald, but nobody actually knows.
Actually nobody knows? Like the internet doesn't know?
I don't know. I don't think so.
ChatGPT doesn't know?
I don't think so.
Oh, impressive.
It's
R.
that
Scott something?
Clark.
Yeah.
So really, you just cleaned up on that question by getting
Is
both
he alive?
of the potential. Yes, very much so.
Oh, I feel like somebody could find out what the R stands for.
The whole fun now is the secretive nature of
okay.
this whole thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely mystery. Like the Trinity, but certainly not as profound. All right, question 4. Only 2 more left, and you are batting 1,000 right now. You're better at this than I think you thought you were going to be. I had every confidence. All right, question 4. The podcast was once famously nominated for an award.
No.
What was that? Thank you for your confidence. What was that award? Was it A, top 50 healthcare podcasts, B, the top 10 podcasts with hosts who look similar, C, top 100 theology podcasts that won't stop making episodes, or D, top 25 podcasts about the weather? Which of these did the Reformed Brotherhood actually receive a nomination for? Was it healthcare?
The one
podcasting
where it
look the
was like
same?
they're still making episodes.
Final answer?
Yeah.
Oh, so close. So the great joke here is at one point in time, we were nominated as a top 50 healthcare podcast, like nominated in quotation
That
marks.
sounds vaguely familiar now, but I don't remember why.
Apparently, Affirmations and Denials had put us into a category of healthcare at one point. So
it's like therapy or something.
we'll get there. Yeah, something like that. All right, final question. And at this point, 3 for 4 is a really strong showing. I'm very impressed. Here is the last question, perhaps the hardest of them all. Question 5. Who speaks the most on the Reformed Brotherhood podcast? Is it A, Tony?
Or just Tony? Based on what I can hear through the floor of our house, I'm aware of when you're speaking, and I'm guessing it's Tony.
We're going to go with A, Tony.
Yep.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows. We love Tony. We miss him on this episode, but not as much as I enjoy having my wife with us. So let's move in then to affirmations and denials before we get to the topic at hand. You know the drill. And if you're listening for the first time, we do these things called affirmations and denials because we're coming alongside the Reformed tradition where it would come and say, I affirm with these principles or deny against these things. And we've taken that to use in our own conversations as here's some things we really, really like, or here's some things that are really not that great. So Jen, I ask you on this episode, are you affirming with or denying against something?
Affirming.
What are you affirming
with? Oh, I have to go first?
Yes.
I don't even know how you guys do them because I've never listened. And I don't think you had affirmations and denials when you first started.
No, that was, who knows
in the
when
one
that started.
episode that I maybe listened to.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I decided I was going to affirm because it was the first thing that came to my mind when you told me I was going to have to do something. And I don't know, maybe you've affirmed it before, but it is the brand of clothing, Viore, which I am decked out in right now. Specifically, their joggers and their hoodie sweatshirt.
All right, but you got to tell the people like why you like those so much and what you call them.
Oh, well, what I call, and not just me, but my friends. And
I've never heard anybody else say this.
These specific sweatpants, which are the Viore performance joggers, we call them butter pants because they feel like butter. They're really soft. They're really comfortable. I will say the brand is not particularly cheap. They are a little on the pricey side. I do not normally spend this amount of money on clothing. I shop at thrift stores. But when it comes to my athleisure, I like to be comfortable. And so these are my favorite. I'm wearing right now the performance joggers and a hoodie, and I'm never been more comfortable.
And we really should be sponsored by Viore at this point.
That'd be great.
I mean, that would be great, bro.
What if you got a sponsorship for Viore after the one episode that I was on?
This is going to be the definitive Viore episode. Do I have a pair of these? Did you give me a pair of pants?
I got you a pair of pants once. You tried them on, and we were both like, "No,
Oh,
not
that's
a
right.
good. That was not a
It
good
was
choice."
the fit, though.
Yeah, not
It
a good
was the
choice
fit.
for you.
Yes.
That particular sweatpants.
They were
You-
comfortable.
something
Nobody knows.
of theirs. Oh, maybe you don't.
No.
I got you rabbit stuff.
That's
you like
true.
to wear the rabbit brand. Also affirming that. Very good brand.
Yes.
Of
So
athleisure.
you're looking for something that's super comfortable. And if for whatever reason you've ever thought to yourself, these pants are slightly more rough than I would like, is there something that would feel like somebody put butter on my legs? Then there's good news.
Hmm.
That's a really strong affirmation.
They're out there.
I think that's great. All right. So I'm going to also affirm with on this episode, and it has to do with you because it's something you just brought home and I'm enjoying
I
now
did just
because
buy that.
right before we started coughing, the background is had a little sickness in our household, a little flu, a little cold action, which we were pretty good in convalescing from. And then all of a sudden we decided, why don't we set up some microphones? And both of us had never wanted to cough more in our entire
I've
lives.
never wanted to cough more than right this second.
Yes, that's how it goes. It's like when something funny happens in church and you've got to keep it together. Same principle at play here. So, but you brought home, and I'm enjoying this non-alcoholic beer, which has been my jam recently. I'm really just enjoying having the treat of beer, but without the alcohol, which is nice. And this is a brand I haven't had before, Bero, Bero.
I think that's how you say it.
And I am trying the Double Tasty West Coast style IPA because it's fun and it's actually delicious. So I think it used to be that when you had non-alcoholic beer, you knew you were having it because it tasted funky, just bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm asking you. But
I know. You're looking at me like, when you've had all that non-alcoholic beer
yes,
for so many years.
for as much alcoholic beer as you've had as episodes you've listened to the podcast.
Exactly.
What did you think? But this is fantastic. And I've had a couple recently and they're just so good. I wouldn't be able to tell. So it's really nice.
It looks like a beer.
It does. It has like the head of a beer. It has a little bit of that lacing on the side of the glass. But also more than anything, I want to cough so bad right now. So
Do you
this
want
is
to tell
like,
people why I picked
delicious.
that beer to buy? Or do we not want to say that? And
no,
by
is
beer,
there-
I mean non-alcoholic beer.
Is there a secret?
Because Tom Holland's affiliated with it somehow. And
Oh,
he's Spider-Man. And I love a
didn't
Marvel
know that.
movie. That's how I found out about it. He talked about it like on a late night show or something. And I don't know if he created it, if he's a partner in it, I don't know. He's sober and one it was looking for good. I remember him talking about looking
Wow.
for good non-alcoholic beer. I didn't feel like there were many out there. So he had some sort of involvement in that.
So he
and I
just
thought-
made it himself.
I don't know. I just knew he's affiliated and I hadn't seen it anywhere. And then this morning I saw it, so I had to get it.
It's really good. I feel a little tingly. These are all kinds of jokes Tony would love right now. Ah,
I can't wait for Tony to listen to this.
yeah. Neither can I.
Later.
It's going to be a joy for everybody. And I think it really will be because you and I have talked about doing a podcast for quite some time, having
Not
it on
this
the
type of
podcast.
podcast.
That's true. We have all kinds of ideas. But when it came time for me to think about people that I would like to talk to in this season of the podcast, honestly, you were the first one that came to my mind. And in part, that's because we got some stuff going on in our lives, and you in particular. And for a while, you've been on a journey of sorts. And I think that the one thing that Tony and I try to bring into all our conversations is that if your theology doesn't work in the course of normal life, then it just doesn't work. So it doesn't matter how much we know and how much we process, what we can even recapitulate or regurgitate in terms of profound theories and philosophies and big words. If it is not the kind of thing that draws us close to our Lord Jesus Christ, that enables us to serve him, to love others more, and to have the kind of firm faith that he desires for us in this life as we live it abundantly in the way that he's given it to us, then what does it matter? And you have a profound amount of theology in your life and in practice, and that's something I very much admire. And so we chose this topic because we thought it'd be super fun for everybody. Let's talk about suffering and let's talk about steadfastness. And we've talked so much in the past, and this is what makes it special. We talked so much in the past about how suffering exists because of the fall, but it's governed by God's sovereign providence. And for believers, suffering is never condemnation. You and I've talked about that quite a bit. Because Christ has made a way through all of that. He's paid for that fully on the cross. The mortgage in our soul has been paid in full. We talked about that actually in the last episode. Instead, though, God doesn't remove this suffering. He uses it to sanctify, to humble, to refine, to preserve his people. And that steadfastness is the grace-enabled endurance of faith through trial, sustained by the word, through the prayer, through ordinary means. All the things that are part and parcel that you hear people say in Reformed theology, but really only matter when we impound them in our journey. And we are anchored in them by the promise that after suffering comes glory. And so in all of that, truly, I thought about you. So I think maybe a good place to start is maybe talk a little bit about your journey. Why you're even one that I want to talk to you about this topic.
Well, I don't know why you want to talk to me about this topic. You've certainly heard enough of it. I guess I don't know where to start, so I guess I'll start with the end, which is I suffer from a chronic illness called endometriosis. Specifically, I deal with an aggressive form called deep infiltrating endometriosis, which means that mine likes to infiltrate all sorts of organs that it does not belong in. It's an illness that affects women. It affects a lot of women. I was actually just telling Jesse that I just discovered this morning, I think on Facebook, that it's Endometriosis Awareness Month. Who knew? And that it said something on there about, 1 in 10 women suffer from
Wow.
endometriosis, which was shocking to me because, think of 10 women at least one of them is probably dealing with this. So I have endometriosis, have had it for a long time. It's very painful. It's very awful. There's a lot that goes into that, and I'm not really sure where to start in that story.
And this is something that, like you said, you've discovered a little while ago was going to be part of your life. And we should say that this is why we're one of the top 50 healthcare podcasts. So we're
You're about to be now.
So on this episode, there is going to be a little bit of medical talk, I think. So just take that as a fair warning in the conversation. Why don't you explain a little bit, like, can we call it endo? I know that kind
Yeah,
of
we
like
can call it endo.
makes it sound cool, but it's not cool. Not cool. But like basically just generally what it is.
So what it is essentially is, I was gonna say I'm guessing most of your audience is dudes.
Get ready, guys.
About to say the word uterus a bunch of times, so buckle up. Essentially, endometriosis is uterine-like tissue that is outside of the uterus. And so it causes all sorts of problems because it gets inflamed, it causes bloating, and it responds in a variety of ways that's very frustrating and awful. For some women, it's mostly impacts them during their menstrual cycle. For other women, it impacts them every day of their life, all the time. They're in pain constantly. We discovered that I had it, I'm trying to think, probably 16, 17 years ago, as a result of Jesse forcing me to go to the emergency room after he found me, I think, crying on the floor of our house. And telling him, no, it's normal. It's just cramps. This is just cramps. This is what girls go through. Spoiler alert, it's not just cramps, and that's not normal amount of pain to be in. So we discovered it then after a trip to the hospital and discovering that I was littered with fibroids, and then had surgery for that, which is where we uncovered the endo. Because often endo is diagnosed via like a laparoscopic surgery. Doesn't show up on MRIs or other imaging. So the
Right.
way to confirm that you have it is via like an exploratory surgery. So that's when we found out that I had endo, but it made a lot of things make sense because I had been dealing with what I just thought was just really painful cramps for probably most of my, I don't know, teen years into adulthood. Had never heard of endo before. As far as I know, nobody in my family also experienced it. So it is common if it's in your family, like you might also have it, but not for me.
So let's talk about then, because this is all important in getting to this point of how this has impacted you and how you understand theology and your servanthood in this and you're bearing up underneath this. But maybe you want to just say briefly, after finding out that that's part of your life, what are some things you've been through because of this?
So when we found out about it, because of the fibroids, I had surgery months, I think probably after that, to have the fibroids removed and some endo excision or ablation at the time, because I didn't know the importance of excision then, to have it removed, and felt a lot better for a little while, maybe for a couple of years, and then have experienced all sorts of things as a result of endo, largely besides the pain and all of that stuff, I don't know if Jesse's talked about it on the podcast before, but one of the main things with endometriosis is very common for people to suffer from infertility as a result of endometriosis, which has definitely been our story. But on top of that, I've had, I don't even know, so many surgeries.
Yep.
I've had some surgeries that didn't go the way that we thought they would go, and things that we didn't even know were possible.
Right.
So probably, I guess it was 9 years ago in 2018, I had a surgery to remove more fibroids and to remove endometriosis. And what I remember about that surgery was that I think it was supposed to be 4 hours long. So when I woke up, it was supposed to be noon. And that was what I remember going
Right.
to sleep and thinking, when I wake up, it'll be like lunchtime. And I remember waking up and the surgeon sitting next to me, which was unusual. And I remember her saying, "Jennifer, it's 5:30 or something like that."
Right.
And I just remember thinking, that's not right.
Right.
What happened? And a lot of things had happened that I found out within the hours after that. And essentially, in that surgery, they had come to Jesse and asked if they could move me into open surgery from the laparoscopic to get better access to it. In the open surgery, discovered that the endo had infiltrated, like I said, my colon. They needed to bring in another surgeon to do a resection of my colon, all with Jesse's permission. So he's just like in the waiting room saying, like, I guess, go ahead,
Right.
do what you need to do.
Right.
So when I woke up from that surgery, essentially, I found out that it had infiltrated my colon and that they had done a resection. They had taken about 6 inches, I think, of my colon out, put it back together. So all was well, we thought. And then while I was in the hospital recovering from that, I was in the hospital, I think it was like day 7. I was being discharged. I remember vividly you tying my shoes.
Yes.
That's the part I remember. I had just gotten dressed. Jesse had just tied my shoes. We had just signed the discharge paperwork. And I remember saying, I don't feel really good. And Jesse said, get back in the bed. And I said, no, I'm just nervous about going home. I think that's why I don't feel good. And then everything after that was a blur, because the next thing I remember is that I was in the bed, that there were a lot of people around me. I remember people covering me with bags of ice.
Yes.
And I don't remember a whole lot after that. But the short version of that long story is that I ended up having another emergency surgery. Turned out my resection had not taken. I was leaking, going septic. And so I had to go into emergency surgery and came out of that surgery with a lovely colostomy bag that Jesse had to tell me about. He had to
That's right.
deliver that news.
Forgot about that. Yeah. So that was a whole traumatic and just dramatic situation, wasn't it? I remember when the doctors were putting all that ice on you and you were spiking like an incredible fever. I remember calling everybody I knew just to ask that they would pray. And that's another example, I think, as we'll get to, is God being good to us in that journey in very difficult times, always showing up even when everything felt like it was falling apart. And so you went in for a surgery that was supposed to be outpatient.
Right.
As wild as that
Supposed to
was,
go
remember
home.
that. Yeah. Then it took an extra like 5 hours. Then it was possible that what happened basically is that resection didn't fuse properly through nobody's fault. In fact, the doctor who did that surgery, who since did my gallbladder surgery this
that's
past
right.
year,
Same guy.
he was such a kind doctor that really God brought us to him. And he was so beside himself with grief over that it didn't work. And I remember when I spoke with him, and he come out after that second surgery and said, I'm so sorry, but she's going to have a temporary colostomy. And he was just devastated by having to have done that, even though we all knew it was a possibility. And so I said to him, well, how many of these have you done? He said, I've done thousands of these. And the resections. I said, how many of them have had a problem where it didn't take? And he said, including this one? I said, yes. He said 2. So, I mean, talk about how do you think about something like that when everything around you is like telling you, well, this is just really bad luck, or you've just been you've drawn the really short straw. But instead, our perspective is very, very different than that. And I want to get to that, but now you're kind of up against something else, right? There's more things on the horizon.
Yeah, now we're back to it. So I'd had the colostomy, like Jesse said, it was temporary, had it for 5 months, had another surgery 5 months later to have it reversed. All went well. It's great. I had a number of years there where I was feeling pretty good. Last few years could tell things were ramping up again, maybe not doing so hot, but to be honest, I was really putting off any sort of surgery conversation because the last one wasn't great. So really wasn't eager to do it again. But recently, I had been having a lot of pain in my back and my like right hand side of my back, particularly during my cycle. And I just would tell Jesse, oh, it's just normal endo stuff. It just comes with the territory. It's what you got to deal with. And then back in October, that pain that normally I could kind of get to go away with a bunch of medication and some icy hot patches would not go away. It just would not relent. And I was texting some of my medical professional friends, and they were like, you should just go to the hospital just to make sure that it's not something more serious. So went through that whole process, went to the ER. Turns out my endo that likes to infiltrate things has now infiltrated my ureter and was blocking my ureter, which was causing my kidney to be swollen and angry, which was what was causing the pain. When I was in the hospital for that, they kept me, did a procedure, I forget what it was called, but essentially tried their best to remove
The blockage.
They didn't know it was endo. I knew it was endo.
Right.
They removed it, put in a stent. I had the stent for about a month, all while still in a lot of pain, still communicating with the doctor that something doesn't feel right. I think something's wrong. Went back to the ER about a month later. Turns out stent had failed. So now I have this lovely thing called a nephrostomy tube that is in my back. It's a tube that is directly into my kidney, comes out of my kidney, out of my back, and is attached to a bag that is strapped to my leg. And I have basically what I call a urine water balloon attached to my leg all of the time.
Another catchphrase for the podcast.
So, I've gotten to experience, I feel like, the gamut of I've had the colostomy bag and now I have the nephrostomy bag. This should be temporary. That's the hope and the plan. I'll have this until I have surgery again, which is scheduled for in May. At which point I will have a total hysterectomy and a bunch of other things and a repair of my ureter. They'll have to kind of do what they did with my colon. They'll have to do a resection of my ureter, take out that portion where the endo is, reimplant it in my bladder, possibly move my bladder up. I don't know. It's very big.
It's a lot of things. It's gonna be
zoning out when the urologist was telling me because I just was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's going to be a party in that OR, loved ones. That's what we keep saying.
Yep.
That's what's ahead. So I should stop there and say, pray for Jen. Pray for us if you would. That is coming up in a couple of months if you're listening to this. It's before May. We definitely cover your prayers. This is the big one.
Yeah.
Right? This is the big one.
This was the one
it's a
we
lot.
didn't want to have.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot and it's difficult and it's hard. And you're probably hearing from us like this is real stuff. And that's why I was so grateful that Jen would be willing to talk about this, because I think there are people that need to hear this, need to hear there's encouragement in this, that there's others who are experiencing this type of thing. But I think the best place to start is something that you and I have talked about a little bit before, which is how? Maybe that's the best place. I think of it, especially for dudes, it's difficult to understand, but you've been through a lot of things. And I know that you've experienced the depth of some of those things, especially after that first surgery with the colostomy. But what has God brought you through? Like, what is it that when it is hard that you find yourself going to God for?
Yeah. So it's hard. I don't want to say it's hard to talk about, because it's not only it's hard to talk about. I'm an open book. I'll tell anybody anything. I just don't often talk about this. I don't bring it up because I also feel like when you get me talking about it, I'm very tempted to say it's not a big deal. It's really not that big of a deal.
Right.
When other people are like, no, it is a big deal. I'm like, it's really not. Because I think about like so many women or men that go through such just way worse things. And there are a lot of women, particularly with endometriosis, that are in pain every single day. And I'm very fortunate that is not always the case for me. I'm not in pain all of the time. But to your point, when I was dealing with the colostomy in particular, that was a really, really hard time. It's amazing what time does, because over time, I look back at that and go, oh, it wasn't so bad. And you're like, remember, it was really tough. But, as time goes on, you're like, no, it was okay. It was all right. But I do remember having a really, really, really hard time with it. I remember journaling a lot. That's how Jesse knows I'm really going through something, is if he sees my journal out, he's like, oh no, uh-oh. Because that is often how I'll, like, when I'm going through something really tough, I'll journal my prayers. I'll write to God in the journal what I'm thinking. And I just was really struggling with that because, spoiler alert, colostomy is rough. It was
Yes.
hard to learn. It was a big learning curve, and they just send you home with a bunch of stuff
Right.
and a lot of instruction, and you're just reeling, and you're like, I don't understand how this works, and I have to eventually go back to work, and I have to have this, and what do I do, and what if something leaks? Like, it was a lot to deal with, even though I knew it was temporary. So I remember in those times just journaling a lot, praying a lot, asking God to make it clear why. I just kept asking. I think I was asking why. Like, why do I have to have the colostomy?
Right.
There has to be a reason. I know there's a reason. Could you tell me the reason? I would like to know the reason. I'm
I-
waiting to hear the reason. Like, I just remember being like, what is it? I know you're looking at it. I know you can see
Right.
the path ahead. And I remember reading a book at the time. I wish I could remember the name of the book because I would love to tell you. I don't remember what it was. I do know it wasn't about suffering.
Was it by R. Scott Clark?
No, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Also, I'm sure Jesse's never talked about this on the podcast, but it's shocking that I was reading a book. Not really a big reader. But I was reading something, and I remember one of the quotes in the book was something along the lines about, it was about like accepting your circumstances from God, knowing that like God could be trusted and that he knows best and has your, best in mind, and kind of getting to that acceptance of your circumstances, and then moving from that acceptance. Like, if you can get to the acceptance of your circumstances, you can then ask God to use those circumstances to glorify him. And if you can get to that point, then it was something about like moving from victim to steward.
Mm.
That's the part that really stuck with me,
Right.
was that movement from no longer being a victim and being a steward. And I just remember asking God to help me be a good steward of the situation. I don't like feeling like a victim. That's partly why I don't like talking about this stuff, is I don't want people to feel bad for me.
Right.
Don't feel bad for me. It's fine.
I feel great for you.
Good, great. I don't want people to feel bad. And I don't want to feel like a victim. I'm not, and I don't, and so I remember asking God, just, could you help me be a good steward? Like, what would that look like? And I remember asking God that, like, he would just give me opportunities to talk to other people, maybe that have to eventually have colostomies. I didn't know if I ever would. Spoiler, I did get to, which was crazy. And I mean, during those times too, I had a lot of family and friends that would reach out and share passages and verses. I was just thinking, I've had people, I remember very distinctly too during that time, my sister, Stephanie, sending me a text. It was like shortly after I was home, and I don't remember the exact reference. It was somewhere in Exodus, and it was the Lord will fight for you.
Lily remained silent.
You need only be silent or still or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
And I remember at the time being like, why would she send me that? Like, I don't even know how that fits.
Come
like,
on,
what,
Steph.
what does this mean? But then I remember really kind of sitting with it and thinking about it. And I've had friends in my recent circumstance send me that same thing
Wow.
out of nowhere. Also named Steph.
Yes.
A friend named
Wild.
Steph has sent me that passage. And just kind of, thinking about that I don't always have to do the fighting. I don't have to do it. I don't have to fight this stuff. The Lord will do it for me. He'll fight for me. I just have to trust him and be still, and he's got it.
So how has like some of this stuff, maybe everything you've been through, but something in particular, changed how you view God? Or how has going through those things changed your relationship with him because you've been through some stuff together? Because I'm with you. We look at the scriptures and we see this amazing example from David, who is saying to God all the time, why and how long and what are you doing? So we know like we're standing in like the shadow of those great heroes of the faith who come before us, and understand that God can hold up to our questions. In our time of suffering, I feel like it's maybe the most honest thing we can do is to just cry out. And no doubt you are doing a lot of that. I remember that. So having cried out to God, maybe moved from victim into steward, how has that changed your relationship with him, how you view him?
Trying to think of how I want to like say that. I mean, if anything, I think it really, in those hard times, in the continued hard times, it certainly makes me rely on God more, have more conversations with him, be more candid. I'm a little bit more like candid in my approach to God and how I talk to him, whether that's in my journal or verbally or out loud or while I'm driving. because he can take it. He
Right.
can. I don't have to be
Right.
like, pretty please, or say things a certain way. I can just say, what is happening? Why is this happening to me? But again, that's another reason that's hard for me to talk about, because I often think, well, why wouldn't it happen to me? Like, why wouldn't it happen to any of us? Like,
Well,
God never said that this was gonna be easy.
yes, so that's really interesting. And
Like-
I've thought about that too, is why flip it that way?
I don't know. I think that's why I'm just like, of course, like I guess maybe I'm just less surprised. That sounds really terrible to say.
No.
It
Yeah.
sounds really pretentious to be like, of course it's happening to me.
No.
But-
I think what, as we've talked about it, what we're reflecting on is that the world is broken. Like, you and I have often joked that like endo is the most full proof that our bodies are totally depraved, that like sin is
Yeah.
in our world, because like it's cells that should hang out in one part of the body going wherever they want, unruly and unchecked, and causing massive pain and disruption to everything else. And I don't think anybody could look at that situation and say, this is not how it's supposed to be. Like, every doctor we've ever talked to has been like, it shouldn't be like this. And we want to say, we're always like, yeah, we know.
That's true. That's like the overarching phrase I feel like that I've dealt with a lot of my adult life is, it's not supposed to be this way.
Right.
Because it's not.
Right.
It isn't supposed to be this way. And it has opened up a lot of conversations for me with my friends, with loved ones, with coworkers, because I can kind of start at that point and be like, yeah, this sucks. And it's not supposed to be this way. This isn't how our bodies were supposed to be. There is brokenness, there is suffering, and that, people that know that we are believers, I think often can sometimes from the outside think that, life is easy and we've got it all together, and because, things can look more peaceful, and it's like, no, it doesn't always go that way. And I think you and I often talk about, I can't imagine going through this without God. Like,
Right.
how do people do that?
For sure.
How's that even possible?
For sure.
How do you explain anything?
Right.
don't-
How do you then process
How do
it?
you process it? How do you know where to go? How do you have hope that things will improve, or if not improve, that there's a reason for it, that God is doing something in your life for you, for
Right.
others? I don't know how people do it.
I agree. It seems hopeless. And in fact, it probably is, because suffering is such a deeply personal, intense process. And I think it's particularly difficult when it feels like it doesn't go away, right? When it's like day after day after day. And you've certainly been in a lot of those circumstances. Is there something that sticks out for you that helped move you from that victim mindset to the steward mindset?
Well, I think probably just God has given me some opportunities to be there for other people in very similar circumstances, which then helps me with that stewardship mindset of like, oh, okay, like I can help other people through this. I remember asking that God would just give me, help me to be a good steward of the situation. I didn't know what that meant. What it meant most immediately after the colostomy surgery was that at some point after my reversal, I had met a woman through a running group. And then she had joined a Bible study that I was leading at the time. And then while in that Bible study, she had discovered that she had, I think it was a relatively early stage of colon cancer, and that she was going to have surgery, and that she was going to have a colostomy. And this woman who I did not know that well, I was now getting to know really well.
Right.
And was visiting her in the hospital, and was, I don't want to say excited, but I was happy that I was going to get to share what I had learned, because I had learned so much about a colostomy and colostomy bag in my experience. And I just wanted to be able to make it easier for somebody else and say, here, this is what you're going to need. This is how this works. This is what you can expect. This is normal. This is not normal. Here's the best supplies to buy. Here's where you should buy them from.
Right.
Because it was nobody's fault, but I didn't have that. Nobody was doing that for me. We were just figuring it out. And so I've been able to do that. More recently at work, somebody's grandmother was going through some stuff, and she needed to have a colostomy bag. And I think this colleague mentioned it to me, and I was like, funny you should mention that. I've also had a colostomy bag. Let me tell you what I know. I was not just going around work talking about colostomies. It had come up in conversation. And so while I've not interacted with her grandmother, I was able to tell her a lot of information that she was able to pass on to her grandmother and her mom. And so, yeah, just being able to talk to other people that are going through it. I'm in a number of endo Facebook groups and things like that, where girls are often putting, asking for advice. I don't typically give advice, but I might like DM somebody directly and just say, I don't give medical advice, but I might give product advice. Here's
Right.
I went through something similar. Here's the brand I thought was most successful for me. Not a doctor.
Right. Yeah, we've said that too. Though, but again, it's not 50 healthcare podcast. One of the things that I admire about how God has led you in those times is that emphasis on moving into service. I think you said it best, like the idea to steward something that God has given us. We generally reserve that kind of words for like the blessings. And I think you and I have talked about this. You kind of said it in some of what you were talking about, where we're not quick to just be like, let's call everything a blessing. Because like, especially sometimes when it hits us, we don't feel that way. And I'm not sure it's helpful to try to run right into that space. But God often lovingly and gently moves us into that space so that we can be a blessing to others. I want to read from 2 Corinthians and the first chapter. This is Paul writing to the church in Corinth. Right off the top, he writes, Paul, an apostle of Christ Jesus, by the will of God, and Timothy, our brother, to the church of God which is at Corinth, with all the saints who are throughout Achaia. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. And hearing you say that, immediately, my mind jumps there. And in fact, like I know, like if we're in any group setting, like we're hanging out with other people, and like the colostomy word comes up, I know your ears are be like, I know I'm going to hear your voice be like,
That's coming up.
did you say colostomy? And I think it's because like I've seen you taking this theology of comfort, that receiving comfort from God, even if that's comfort in this really tremendously horrible experience. And it's not like whistling in the dark or trying to turn it around or make it better than it actually is. It's that the joy of going through it is the joy of being able to comfort somebody else. That's what I see. How would you describe it?
I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. I have this just overwhelming feeling of through all of that, I just want to help other people. I just want to make other people's experience better. And I remember seeing a tweet when Twitter was a thing. Somebody had written about, if you want God to use him, or if you want God to use you, don't tell him how.
Mm.
And I remember like that also often is in my head where I'm just like, asking God, just do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you how. I don't get to tell you how.
Yes, that's right.
But just use me, use my circumstances, bring up colostomy in conversation so that I can talk about it, or now nephrostomy.
Right. And that's happened too, right? Since you've had this process. I know there's been others that you've talked to about that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I do think use this not as like a platform. It's like every conversation you have ends up in this place, the conversation we're having
To
right
be
now.
clear, it does not.
Yes. However, I have seen powerfully the way in which this example and your testimony has provided an amazing influence on our friends who are not believers. How has this been something that has helped you talk about what it means to be a Christian?
It's hard. I'm trying to think of how to talk about that because that's often not how I think about it. I'm not thinking about it as, this situation gives me a way to talk to these people about.
Or that gospel proclamation tag?
It's just, I don't know. It just happens. Like, it's just part of,
I'm with you.
the conversation. The people that I know, that I work with, that I'm friends with, know us well, know our feelings, know our relationship with God. And so, it has open conversations where people will ask me or say things to me, which are hard for me to hear because I don't understand it. But they'll say like, I don't know how you're dealing with this. You're so peaceful. You're handling it so well.
Right.
And I think you're
Right.
crazy. I'm not handling this well. This is terrible. I hate this. But and that's why I don't like talking about it, because I'm just like, oh, I'm not handling this well. So that will open a door where I'm often like, well, if it seems like I'm handling this well, let me tell you why that is. Because there's a reason for the hope that I have. And there's, I know that God has a plan for all of this, even if I don't understand it or can't see the end. I know that he's doing a work in me, for me, and, can also share about, just by being a Christian doesn't mean that life will be easy and that it will be without suffering.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people just think that that's the case. Those Christians have it all together.
Right.
Their life is so easy.
Right.
They don't go through anything hard.
Some do. Come hang out on the Lord's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
You'll see. It's the real deal, because like you said, God doesn't promise to spare us from these things. And that's what makes this whole conversation about suffering like get turned on its head. Because as we said at the open, all this stuff doesn't get removed. God is redeeming these things. He's implanted us in these things. He's doing something for us. I like what you said. He's with us. I mean, what great encouragement. Again, that is not available to the unbeliever.
Right.
To the person who just thinks the world is a dead and ugly place without reason, without recourse. But instead, one of the things that really hit me with what you were saying was, it sounds like you're starting with not the pain you experience first, not even like the emotions you experience first, but you're talking about the character and the sovereignty of God first. That everything gets filtered through that. It's like the sieve in which you try to pass through everything, because when it feels helpless, if we do not start with the rooted character of God first, then everything is going to be lost. It's going to be like suffering is going to feel like it's random, that it's without purpose, that it's meaningless, that it's for our destruction, that's meant to bring us down instead of to lift us up under the power of God. And I see that in the example. I think that's what people are coming to you and saying, because it shouldn't look, can I say it this way? Like, it shouldn't look this easy, what you're doing. And I know it's not easy. And you're not like putting on airs to somehow make it seem like it's something that's not. However, like when you get up to go to work on a day that's hard, I know it's because you're receiving power from God to do the things which he's called you to do, because you've processed it in this way. Is that fair?
I guess. Hey, guys, it makes me even uncomfortable to hear Jesse say that, because I'm just like, I don't think that I'm doing anything special or spectacular or amazing, because I'm not. Like, I just am like, I'm just doing the thing. Life is hard sometimes, and it's a lot harder for a lot of other people. And so
that's true.
But
it's one of those things where I'll use the catchphrase, like God does all the verbs. I think that's what I hear you saying too, is that you have to move forward, but you're doing that because you believe God has called you to Tuesday meetings and to being with your friends and to being at church and to serving in women's ministry and to leading Bible studies, and that he will provide a way for you to do that, even in the midst of things that seem pretty horrible.
Yeah.
In the midst of all of that horribleness, that God is still doing like a work that's greater than that stuff.
Yeah. He's always given me, you, but I can only speak on my own behalf. He's always given me the strength to do the thing if I step out to do the thing.
Right on.
Even on those days that are hard and that I'm feeling really bad physically, I know enough, been through enough with God to know if I just keep going, he's going to give me the strength. He will. It'll be fine. I'll be okay. And so far, I always have been, And so even as we go into this surgery that neither one of us is looking forward to, probably Jesse's dreading it more than I am. We both also know that, like, on the other side of it, like, he's going to see us through it all. There's no doubt in my mind.
That's right.
Like, I know that, but I also know it was going to be hard. It's probably not going to be easy. It's probably not going to be pain-free, but it will be good, and it will be better. And we'll get to talk about it with people. Yes. Maybe more than they would like to talk about it. You probably all are sick of hearing about it by now. I don't know how long we've been talking about endo, but it's
4
probably
hours.
Too long.
4 hours. Longest episode ever. So I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up our conversation. And I wanted to give you the opportunity. You've already mentioned this a couple of times. You know that you have a heart that's sensitive to people going through things. I think just like Paul writes to the Corinthians here, if you've been through some stuff, you want to be with the people who are going through that stuff. You have a heart that gravitates. It just moves. It tilts. it goes in that direction. And so for people listening, and I think there are going to be people listening that are going to really resonate with this, or they're going to send it to somebody who's going through exactly what you're talking about. What's like the one thing you'd want them to know?
Oh, gosh.
I know it's tough, but it's my podcast, so I get to ask the questions.
I mean, that's hard because there's a lot of things I want to say.
You can tell. You can say a bunch. We got
no,
all the
I
time in
mean-
the world. Go ahead.
I mean, the one thing that I'd want them to know, which we already talked about, is that God sees them and is with them in this situation. They are not alone, even if they feel like they are alone or that nobody understands what they're going through. God does. But the other thing I want them to know, specifically, I don't know how many women listen to your podcast,
All right, sisters, here you go.
but on the just medical side of things, if you're in any amount of pain during your cycle or outside of your cycle, connected to your cycle, that is keeping you from going to work or doing your daily activities or just keeping you from living life, that is not normal. And I thought it was normal for years because doctors just tell us as women, it's fine, you're fine, cramps hurt. They shouldn't hurt that much. That's not normal.
Right.
And you should talk to somebody. You should talk to your doctor, and you should keep talking to your doctors until you get to see the right one that will figure out what's going on. That's the thing that I like to talk to women particularly about the most, because we tend to explain our own symptoms away because we're just used to that and going, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine, when it's not. So I just want people to know that it's okay to say, this hurts a lot and I don't think it's normal.
Yeah, I remember we've talked a lot about, for both of us, like pain and experience. And we sometimes want to say, well, somebody probably has it worse. And that'll always be true.
Yep.
But one of the things that you've taught me very well is that God does see our pain. Whatever it is, like whatever level it is, that's how big and loving he is. And I remember we used to have, came on like a placard at some point, like a stock card. It said something like, your pain matters here, or your pain is relevant here. And I think this idea that that's exactly how God sees us. He loves us so deeply and so desperately. All these we were talking about as we're going through all these parables, that he comes for us to be with us in our greatest hour of need. And not only that, but he already did that in our great hour of need, which was when we needed salvation. So when in Isaiah 53, we read that Jesus, the Messiah, is the one who's well acquainted with suffering, who just knows what it's like, and then is going to carry and bear our burdens. That for me is like made all the difference, even as you and I kind of walk through some of this together. I was thinking of this journey that we've been on when our pastor, I'll give him attribution for this because he said this in the sermon last week, Pastor Steve Wiggins, he said something to the effect of, your greatest spiritual breakthrough, the one that you desperately want, the one that's ahead of you, that breakthrough is going to come only when you understand and realize that Jesus has everything for your current and present need. That he is all in all, but he's all in all for you right now in the thing that feels like it's so intractable, so difficult, so beyond you. Only when you come to him and submit and surrender yourself to him and say, you are everything that I need for all in all right now in this particular instance, that really that breakthrough is beyond that place. And I guess we just had a lot of breakthroughs. So just like there's been different levels of kind of coming into that realization. We didn't talk about that quote. I don't know how
I don't know what you're talking about. The card or something that you were talking about.
I don't know. It showed up like in the mail or something, like maybe as part of like. But how does that strike you in terms of has this process brought you spiritual breakthrough at various times?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly at various times. I mean, yeah, where again, I feel like I'm just repeating myself and saying the same thing in maybe slightly different ways.
That's what Tony and I do.
Is that what I'm missing on the podcast? Is you guys just saying the same thing over and over again?
Sure.
It's just taught me that, I guess it's just like, I'm trying to think of how I want to say it. Just, I've learned, I feel like the same thing over and over again, where it's like you forget because you start to feel better.
Right.
And then you don't feel good again. And you're like, oh, that's right. And that you just, it's been a good reminder to have those conversations with God about, like, he gets it. I'm not talking to somebody that does not understand what suffering is, what that feels like, how hard things are, that he gets it. And that he only wants what is good for me, even when the thing I'm dealing with doesn't feel like it's good for me.
Right.
But I know that it is because he's allowing it.
Right.
So it has to be.
That preaches. Amen. I don't think there's any other better place to stop than there. Thanks for being willing to talk about this. I know it's a strange thing. It's a hard thing, but I think there's so many people that will be blessed and encouraged by what you shared. And I think that we're just going to have you as a regular guest on the podcast now. We
I don't
have
think
to talk
people want
about this
that.
stuff.
Sorry, everybody, that this was the first appearance. What? Talk about
10 years.
endometriosis.
So what have we learned on this episode of the Reformed Brotherhood? Well, we've learned that endo is definitely proof that the fall is real and that sin is in the world and in our bodies. But I think you've also taught us that there is so much within all of our suffering that God gives to us to steward. And I really love that idea of picking up our stewardship and not just saving our stewardship for our blessings, but perhaps more so if Romans 8:28 is for real. I mean, if we actually believe that in our places of most profound disappointment and pain and discomfort, that all the things, everything and all the things, to repeat myself, work for good for those who are called according to God's purpose and love him, then why should we not say that we should steward all the things as well? So thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
For coming on this podcast.
Jesse.
Yeah. We're just going to pack up the mics and go about our day as if this
As
never
if
happened.
nothing happened. This is super weird. Write in about what you want Jesse and I to talk about next. That isn't so serious.
Wow. He just totally took over the podcast right there. That was pretty well done. I love it. You're a professional already. So you heard it from Jen, loved ones. If you'd like to have her back on, you know how to find us. The best way to find us is to go to t.me/Reform Brotherhood. That is a link that you can put into any browser, t.me/Reform Brotherhood. It will take you to a Telegram link. Telegram is a messaging app. You use Telegram.
I do use Telegram.
Are you in the Reform Brotherhood Telegram group?
No. I'm not. I think I only recently learned that you had one. And I was like, why?
What?
Who's in that?
Listen, I'm so glad you asked. It's like you're setting me up. Why? Because it's an amazing little corner of the internet where people who are listening to the podcast and love the Lord Jesus Christ come together to interact, to hang out, to share information with each other, to share memes. And there's like taste tests happening in there. I mean, you're missing out all kinds of stuff.
Oh, well, I do love a taste
Yes.
test. We do those at work.
Yes.
Often. But I'm not joining your group.
Yes. You didn't need to say that while we were recording.
I mean, I'll definitely join it. Just send Jesse your Telegram questions
All right. I'm happy to act
For
as a
me.
go-between.
if you want me to taste test something.
In addition, I want to say thank you. I know Jen does too, for everybody who listens, who gives financially to make the podcast possible. That's why this little makeshift kitchen recording studio happened and why we could get Jen on and why her voice sounds so mellifluous and so good. It's because people give a little bit to make sure that a lot happens so that it gets posted and published and processed and all that good stuff. It does cost money to keep it going. And thank you so much for joining us. If you want to join in on that, you can just go to patreon.com/Reformed Brotherhood. So that's it. I'm going to put you on the spot one last time. Is there any famous last words you want to say about anything? This is your chance. After all this time, is there a message you want to give to Tony?
Is there a message I want to give to
He's
Tony
gonna edit this.
specifically?
He's going to process this.
No, I don't have a message that I want to give to Tony. I'll give a message to your entire audience, which is you all should give Jesse a hard time about the number of classic movies that he has not seen.
This seems like
Because that
not
has been a
necessary.
topic of conversation recently. So why don't you light up his Telegram with asking him why he hasn't seen movies like Forrest Gump
Never seen
or
it.
The Mighty Ducks
Never seen-
or The Ghost.
well,
Well, you've seen Mighty Ducks now because I made you watch it.
Yes. And can we just talk about how
Or
I
Ghostbusters.
didn't really, I've never seen it, how I did not enjoy the Mighty Ducks as much because of the sheer number of penalties that are not called
That's
by the
true.
refs
Jesse,
during
the
that.
entire movie while I was making him watch it was just telling me about why that couldn't happen. That would never happen. That's not allowed. And I was actually waiting for Kenan Thompson to show up because I thought he was in the Mighty Ducks, but he was in D2, which we then also watched. I was just waiting for Kenan.
Not to mention, it's just nonsensical. I don't understand how
It's
it went
such
from
a good movie.
No, but it went from Pee Wee hockey to like the national U18.
Battling Iceland.
Yes. And then I didn't see the third one. Did you watch it?
We didn't watch it yet. Should we watch that after this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to watch
it's
it.
on the Disney Plus watch list.
Oh,
And you haven't seen Sandlot?
No.
That's a baseball movie.
yeah, but
There's a
don't know what
whole
happened.
list of movies, listeners, that Jesse's not seen, and I don't know why.
I've seen all the Star Wars movies. Do
So,
we need to?
You haven't
And
seen all
Lord of
those.
the Rings.
Yeah. Nobody
Do
cares
we need
about
to?
those.
Have you seen Lord of the Rings?
A long time ago.
No, this is just turning into a conversation. We're not privately.
We don't need it. Is this the podcast you all want? Is this what you were waiting for? I'm just saying, write into Telegram about the movies that Jesse should definitely see, and he'll let you know whether he's seen them. And I'll make him watch them.
Yeah, well, you'd have to join the Telegram to know.
No, well, Tony will tell me.
That is true. Well, I'm so glad we finally got to this point because after this is the encouragement apparently everybody was looking for, at least I was. So I'm so glad you finally joined us. Let's not go another 10 years though
Well,
without
we'll see.
having on the really.
We'll see. I think people are going to listen to this and be like, please don't have her back ever again.
Well, on that note, honor everyone.
Love the brotherhood or sisterhood.
What if I fall